Hello and welcome to Elvis the Ultimate Fan channel. Before we dive into this week's episode, I'd like to remind you to join me live every Wednesday and Sunday for my YouTube live stream shows when we have Elvis Fan chats, an Elvis Fan of the Month quiz with monthly prizes up for grabs, and I pick my Elvis Song of the Week. In part 1 of my interview with Judy Palmer Bendewald, she told me about becoming an Elvis fan, meeting Elvis at Graceland, and the pictures she took of Elvis and Priscilla when they brought newly born Lisa Marie home from the hospital. In the second part, she picks up the story in June 1968 when she attended the taping of the NBC TV Special that's referred to by some as the Comeback Special. I'm so jealous. The first time you saw Elvis live was, and you can tell everybody,
it was for the 68 TV special.
Wow.
And we had sent for tickets to NBC, and we had student, back then everything was, you had to do it on the cheap because you didn't have any money, so we had these student fares. We flew down, we stayed with a girlfriend, another Elvis fan down there. And so we had tickets for both Thursday and Saturday shows, but Thursday night there were 2 shows filmed. And you now know how the setup was with the half-circle stadium-type seating.
Yes.
And then the stage. Well, on Thursday night, we were in the stadium seated, but it was away from the stage. And so we watched that show, but it was like he was there and we were over here. So I didn't get to actually see. I heard him and I could see him, but I couldn't be close.
Yeah.
So I remember thinking of that song. What is that song? You're going up, you're going down. Which I was trying to think of what was the name. We've never heard that song before.
Oh yeah, Baby, What You Want Me to Do. I think it's
yeah,
called.
But all we knew it was called "It's Going Up, You're Going Down."
Yeah.
And so then Saturday night came, and we were in line, and I can still feel being in that line and feeling the sun on me. I mean, it's a weird feeling. I remember being in that line. And usually you think that when you go to, back then you could send away for tickets to go to, the Cher show or now the Ellen show and so forth. And usually you're in an audience and then they're on a stage down below. Well, we came in to that half-circle stadium seating with the stage right there. And so there was the 3 of us as we walked in. And Mr. Finkel was on stage, and he said to me, "Sit here." And he put me right on the corner. And I was looking up, and there was this huge camera over the top of the stage. And I thought, gee, I'm not even going to be able to see him, But here I was, right there on the corner. And then when he walked out, I mean, it was like, gosh, you can't even imagine what that was like. He's there in front of you. And I likened to I was looking, about a week ago, I was looking at the 40th anniversary show. And now we know Elvis was really nervous, and we were really, really nervous. But I was looking at that show, and when he first came out, and you could tell he looked nervous. And then everybody screamed, and he got that twinkle in his eye, and he looked just like, yep, I got him in the palm of my hand. He knew he was right there. And I could say he knew he was back, but except somebody told Elvis, well, the Comeback Special, and Elvis said, hey, I never left.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm never comfortable with calling it the Comeback Special because I know why people are saying that, but they're quite correct. Really, he was never away. He was just doing something completely different.
Was.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like they said, that all the movies. We look back at those movies, and now you can say this about it and that. But you know what? We were fans, getting to know him through the music and then through the movies. He carried us through the movies, and then that brought us through into seeing him in person and the shows. And we grew up with him. And that was just part of our life, seeing those movies. That was the only way we got to see Elvis, and it was exciting. It was just like seeing him in person.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
is right. Yeah. Now, for anybody that wants to look for you, we're talking of actually June the 29th, the stand-up shows, because he did 4 shows. You're quite correct. 2 of them were sit down, and 2 of them were stand-up.
the stand-up show, they had 2 shows, but they left everyone in there. So it was a combination of 2 shows, but you got to stay in there for both. The other one, they took people out in between the shows. So I got to be, we got to be in there the entire time. And then they would do things like adjusting his mic, and he would do the Tiptoe Through the Tulips and MacArthur's Park and My Boy, and Moby Dick and all that. And, it was just so much fun. And, because he probably felt a little uncomfortable trying to entertain people up there. But it was so fun to know we didn't have to leave. So we were there the whole time. I'm on the corner, and it's like the semicircle, and then the stage, and then the orchestra. I'm on the corner, on the right-hand corner. If you're looking from the stands, I'm on the right-hand corner, and then behind me would be, I guess, the orchestra behind there. So it's 4 corners. I'm in a blue dress. I have black glasses, and there's another girl next to me with a blue dress. And now, after 50 years, I met her through Facebook.
Wow.
And so funny, because somebody said, another fan that I wrote to for years in Los Angeles, she said, well, you know who that is, the other girl in the blue dress, don't you? And I go, no. She goes, well, she's Mary's sister. And I used to write to Mary, and Mary used to go up to Hillcrest and take pictures. She and I corresponded. I have her pictures. I never knew her sister Pam until just recently.
Yeah, that's something else, isn't it?
That was the funny.
Yeah, the power of Facebook.
Yeah, it was really cool what through all the years and everything, and she even got a piece of the tape. See, they put tape to keep Elvis's suit, the leather jacket, taped down so that it didn't move around. And he gave her a piece of the tape when he was walking off stage, and she kept it, for all those years. So
as I said, I was very jealous. I'm jealous of anybody that saw Elvis. But the '68 comeback special was only the first of many times you saw him. In fact, you saw him over 60 times, didn't you?
Let's see. I saw almost 70 shows over from, I guess it'd be 69, not counting the '68 special, from 69 in Vegas through 1976. And I saw 10 out of 14 of the Vegas shows. Some of them, it's like my mother passed away, and I lived at home and helped take care of my dad and my brothers and sisters. So I wasn't able to go to a couple of them because of that. So at any rate, I most of the times, like in Vegas '69, that was another absolutely incredible moment to go to Vegas in '69. And then also, I've always went the last of the engagements, because when I left Memphis in '68, everybody was still doing things. Elvis came out. My friends got pictures of him and so on. And so I went the end of the engagement, so he wasn't going to be there anymore when I left. So '69, I saw 6 shows. That was the first time I got a kiss. And so during that show, he did Hey Jude. And so usually he would go over to the sides, as you saw, and that's the way it is. He would go to the sides, because the people in the middle were usually the high rollers, where at the very end they come in and be seated, or people, the high tippers and stuff. He always went to the sides for the fans. And so, but I was sitting a little to the side, and I was right on the stage. This particular song of Hey Jude, he started to walk right across the stage to me. Now, he wasn't going along, with hands and everything. He walked right to me singing Hey Jude. And I just looked at I felt like, oh my gosh, she's coming right here. And I was scared to death. I was just petrified. And he came over and he took my hand and helped me stand up, and he went, mwah, and gave me this big kiss. And I think I just about fell over. And then, you can't describe, mwah, so you can't write it in an article or anything. But anyway, then the next thing I knew was he was singing "Are You Lonesome Tonight," and I was just sitting there crying.
Wow.
Because here's another first time I saw him sing, and now first time I got a kiss. So that was really cool.
Tell me about the formula that you discovered for taking photographs of him on stage without alerting the security.
Okay, so I worked for a camera store, and then when Elvis started going to Vegas, you weren't allowed to take pictures and flash pictures. You couldn't take them. If you took a camera in, they would take it away, and 9 times out of 10, you could not have the camera back. So I decided in about 71, I got better. I got a 35 millimeter camera. That's when 400 ASA slide film came out. Before that, it was nothing that fast of a speed to be able to catch things with available light. And then I practiced at local concerts here in Spokane to perfect, because you have to have it at 125th of a second, or you can't stop it in action, the person on the stage. But then you always have to worry about the lighting, because you're just going with whatever lighting is there. You can't really get a reading on it. But I perfected it down to 400 ASA film, 125th of a second, 400 ASA film, and then I had at f2.8, and then I used a 135 telephoto lens. And so once I got first one pictures I took were in 71, and they were just on the fly real quick, because I was pretty scared to have my camera taken away. And I had this big leather bag that I wore. It was like 70s bucket bag. And I had a cassette tape recorder in there, and a 35 millimeter camera, and a telephoto lens. Can you imagine? And so, and you've got these nice clothes on, and you're wearing gowns and stuff into this, and I'm wearing this leather. Nowadays, I sure question that. And so I just leave the tape recorder in the bag and put the microphone with a napkin over the top of it. So we recorded the shows. And then in 72, and we got seated right in front of him, in the front, middle, and back a couple of seats on the, because you've seen the tables, how they go.
Yes.
Well, and then I had a 35 millimeter lens, a 135 telephoto. So I took these pictures. How I did that, I just don't even know, because I'm sitting right in front of him. All the lights are going to be shining right there. Of course, probably everybody's looking at Elvis instead of me. So I used to go over to LA and see Virginia Coons over there. And so I took my roll of film over to a Kodak place over there. When we got the pictures back, we darn near fainted. Because usually you got these teeny tiny little pictures of Elvis that were almost undescribable. You could hardly see them. And this is when I got those pictures of him in the blue suit. And they were just so magnificent, and just fabulous. Well, after that, it went round the world. And Sandy Pichon said, when she saw me the next, in 2008, she said, 400 ASA, f2.8, at 125th of a second, and and she said once we got that formula, it went around the world. Everybody could do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
No, I've seen these photographs, and they're absolutely superb. And there's a lot more of the photographs you've taken of Elvis in concert in your book.
Yeah.
I just
and the thing is like you, Steve, I never got paid for any of those things either. I went down to a T-shirt shop because they had these iron-on T-shirts down in Los Angeles that you used to do. And so I was into this T-shirt shop in LA the next year, and there was my picture from Vegas. And I said, oh, I took that picture. And they go, oh, well, that's nice. And then it was on the Kung Fu magazine. So if nothing else, it's kind of cool that I have these things, that I did these things, and it's my work. But, you know, I like you, I'm not in it to make money. I'm in it to enjoy. And it's like sending and trading pictures over the years with the different fans across the world.
The last time you saw Elvis live, I believe, was in Spokane. Was it April 27th, 1976?
Okay, so I saw him in Portland in November of 76.
Oh,
but
right.
I flew over. Yeah, I flew over overnight. I flew over at night. I gave him, from the States, I gave him a composite of pictures I gave him in a frame, and I got a scarf. But it wasn't, I can't think of anything really outstanding that I could say about the show, that it was, you know, just like the ones that I saw in Spokane. So really the last time I could really say would be in Spokane, April 27th, 76. And when he was here in 73, there were guards in the front of the stage, police officers, and you couldn't go toward the stage. And so I decided, I went to Portland the day before he was here in 76, and they, in Seattle. I went to Seattle April 26th, and they were allowing people up to the stage. And I thought, okay, when he comes to Spokane tomorrow, because we had to drive 300 miles home, I'm going to be the first one up to the stage. So when he started to do Love Me, I think it was, and he looked at me and smiled, and he said, he says, what do you want, honey? And I said, a kiss and a scarf. And now that CD from Spokane is out, I can hear that, and I can hear right when I got my kiss.
Yeah, I listened to that CD yesterday, and it's when he starts singing "Love Me," and you're quite correct. It's quite a loud kiss. It's like a very loud smacking sound, and you can tell the exact second you get your kiss.
Yeah, and the thing is, Linda Thompson said Elvis had his lips were like two giant puffy marshmallows, and I said she nailed it, because I was always trying to think, how do you explain his kiss, and that was just perfect. Yeah. I got a kiss in Vegas in 70, and he bent down, one of those kisses where he stood on the table, and I was like third person in, and he stood on the table and put his foot down on the table and pulled me over to him and kissed me. And the lights from the balcony and everything were on, and I was just thinking, oh my gosh, because he was just right there and the lights on him. It was too much.
I would imagine it's a huge adrenaline rush.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you should say. And then when we got the scarves the first time, 71, he wasn't really giving out scarves so much like he did later. It was lots of scarves. But he would save it and just be one. And my three girlfriends, two of my girlfriends and myself got a scarf. And boy, wearing those out of the showroom was quite a deal, to get that scarf. So I have a picture of all three of us with our scarves on. But anyway, both shows in Spokane in 73 and 76, he did just phenomenal shows. And I was so proud of him. And in 73, when he came here, people had always thought, oh, she's a crazy Elvis fan, But when they saw him and he sang just such a beautiful show, everybody talked about it. And so it made you so proud, and that people could see what you had seen for so long. In 73, I had a 16 by 20 framed in a frame to send backstage to him. between the shows, and Mr. Distin put it on an easel backstage between the first show and the second show. When he was doing Johnny Be Good during the second show, he walked over to the piano, and he was drying his face on this towel from the Redpath Hotel where he was staying, and he wiped it all over his face. And then he turned it. I was in the front row both shows, right in the same seat. And he turned and he looked right at me, and he winked and smiled, like, thank you for the picture, and threw it to me. I mean, that was even cooler, because not only did they had thought I was crazy, but now I got the towel, you know.
Yeah.
That was even cooler for everybody to see, my friends see that.
You've still got the scarves and the towel, yes?
Yes, I still have those. People ask me, they write and say they don't know anybody that would sell an autograph, but the ones I have are special to me.
Yes.
And so, I mean, I suppose if you had a bunch of autographs that Elvis had autographed over the years, but, you know, the ones I have are special to me.
Yes.
So.
Okay. We have to mention, obviously, unfortunately, Elvis's death. Where were you, and do you remember when you heard that he'd passed away?
Yeah. Well, actually, I had a new job, and it was a grocery checker, and they said I had a phone call, but I couldn't go take the phone call. They said, when you get a break, you can go out and make the phone call. Okay, so then I went out to the phone booth, and I called, and Brenda said, Judy, and I said, is it Elvis? And she said, yes. We just knew something was wrong the last year or so, and I just knew it was Elvis. And so when we went out to dinner that night, not really to dinner, but just to get together and talk. And there was maybe 5 of us, and the entire restaurant was quiet. And you could hear people say, Elvis died today. And it was almost a reverent thing. It was like our generation, that was, you know, it suddenly makes you feel really old. Like, there was part of one band says, I just couldn't handle it because part of me died. And so that's just kind of how I felt too. And then I didn't get to go back to the funeral. I just had a new job. And then when I went back in 2008 to Memphis, when I did my book, Carla, my editor, and then she put me in touch with Mike Freeman, and Mike Freeman became my publisher. And we went to Memphis in 2000. I went to Memphis in 2008, and when I went to Graceland, it was just, you know, when you actually go to somebody's gravesite, you know, when they live away, far away, it's like they never really died. Not that you're in denial, but it's like it never really happened. But once you're there, it all hit me. And I know I went to Graceland a couple of times, and when I went over to the and I was looking at the jumpsuits, I just had tears streaming down my face because involuntarily I just started crying because I saw him in so many of those.
Yes.
And at that time they had this car museum was smaller, and they had the studs there, and they had my picture that I had taken of the day he got the studs in Los Angeles in October of 70. I was there, and so I went into the museum, and there's my picture on the placard of the studs, and there's the studs. And that was another thing that made me cry because of the memory of being there that time. And then I went over to England to be part of the British fan club's September party thing that they do. And it's funny how you don't realize that you suppress these feelings. And after I talked, then I went into the bathroom to change, and they had introduced me to these 3 ladies, very nice ladies, and we become still friends now. And I went into the bathroom and I changed and I came out and one of the ladies came in because I was crying and this one lady came in and said, "Judy, are you okay?" So I started to talk to her about that. And I think all of a sudden the reality of it set in and all those memories of Elvis and everything came up. And then the grief overwhelmed me at that moment. And so then after about 15 minutes, the other lady comes in and said, "Judy, are you okay in here?" And the blow dryers are going off and the doors are slamming. The other lady comes in and she goes, "Are you girls okay in here?" And so it was a fun experience when you look back on it. They just took me under their wing and took me out for dinner that night. And we sat in this little pub and just became best friends and laughed and shared Elvis. That's just how Elvis fans are.
Yeah.
You don't know them, you meet them, and you're lifelong friends.
Yeah.
And he's amazing how he's put people together in our lives, isn't he?
It's a family. Elvis fans are like one big family.
Yeah. When I went back in 2008, and at that time I really wasn't into tribute artists because I had seen Elvis, and that was kind of frozen in my mind with the precious memories I had for him. Mm. Well, when we went to the Elvis Presley Hard Rock Cafe, Terry Michael Jeffries was there, and I happened to meet two of the girls that used to be in my fan club years before. So we sat together. My other friends sat at another table. Well, so one of my fun things that happened that night was there was a table of Japanese Elvis fans that were there, probably took up maybe 20 or 30 people there. And they were in the front, and then we were all around. He was singing songs all evening. And then he sang Drums of the Island. Now, how many people even know the song Drums of the Island, right? Mm. And when he sang that, everybody was on their feet and applauding to the music and everything. And it was just such an Elvis fan deal. It was exciting to be part of it all. Later, they said, well, you should meet Terry. And so I went up and I just said to him, this is the most fun I've had since Elvis died. And he just stood up and gave me a big hug and said how much that meant to him. Yeah. Getting together with the fans in Denmark, it was just like being back in Vegas. It's so much fun. The same in England. Yeah. And then running in Memphis, I run into fans from England there, and seeing the fans in Memphis. It's just so much fun to get together. It's like being back in Vegas again.
I've always said that the Elvis fans are the best fans in the world. I'm biased because I'm a huge Elvis fan, obviously. But yeah, no, I do firmly believe Elvis fans are the best in the world.
They are, and they used to. In fact, somebody quoted something about that back in Vegas. The Elvis Presley fans are the kindest, nicest people in Las Vegas. So that was a cool thing, and that's true.
We've mentioned your book quite a few times along the way, obviously. It's My Treasured Memories of Elvis. I think it was first published in June 2009. It's quite a large format book, isn't it? It's 8 inches by 11. Includes an awful lot of the photographs and more that we've discussed. But I think it's becoming a bit of a collector's item now, is it? It's quite rare to find. Is it still available?
Well, I only have about 10 copies left, and I think Mike had only about the same. The thing is over the years, we did them in 2009, and Mike Freeman was heavily connected to a lot of the European fan clubs, and they bought up some of the books when we first got them, took them over there and sold them to their fan clubs and so forth over there. But now there was one on Amazon the other day, $800.
Wow.
Now, number one, who's going to pay $800 for it? And who's selling it for $800?
Mm.
But then again, on eBay recently, one of my candid pictures sold for $90. A candid picture that's been in a scrapbook. It's not even a current picture, you know. That isn't, you know, I've never done it to make money off of Elvis, you know, not to put anybody down that they did, but I never charged that kind of money for that. But the book, when our book came out, the thing that was really cool is my girlfriend had always told me, another Elvis fan, you need to put these together in a book and you need to write your stories down. And then what a blessing to have everybody put their time in for free. You know, one girl got all my negatives and pictures up to speed. Carla was an editor, so she did all the editing. Mike was a publisher. I found a printer. And then Mike knew Betty Harper, and he gave her the cover of the magazine and said, could you make the cover up for her? And she sent me up 12 copies of different graphics on it, and I just picked from whatever I wanted. And to have Betty, she volunteered her talent, you know, as part of the project. And she says, thank you for allowing me to be part of your wonderful book. So, and then what she did is the front of the book, and then the back of the book is a picture of Elvis in '74. I went to the Tom Jones show, pretty much figuring that Elvis would be at the Tom Jones show the day after he closed. And we were sitting across the aisle from him, and when Tom Jones introduced him, Elvis stood up and looked toward the balcony, and I have this picture with his head up. And then Betty, about a month after we got the book published, she sent me this, and she said, what do you think of this? And she put the front of the book cover with the headshot of him behind it, and it's a composite, and it almost has a spiritual feel to it. It's just so cool. I ended up making that picture into quite a large poster-sized print and framing it and sending it to Graceland for the 35th anniversary. And I had wanted to incorporate flowers somehow, and I couldn't. So I ended up printing it, and then I just wrote, my treasured memories of Elvis, we miss you, and then put the four of us, Betty and Mike and Carla and I, and they put it right by Vernon's grave, leaned up against the wrought iron gate there. And then somebody went up to the walk-up on that evening, and they took pictures, and Graceland and Priscilla and Lisa had bouquets, large bouquets, and one of them was right by my picture. So I ended up having flowers by mine.
Wow, that's lovely. That's lovely. Yeah, I've seen the picture of Elvis being introduced at the Tom Jones concert, and it's a beautiful picture because all you can see actually is Elvis's face outlined against the blackness. It's a lovely photograph.
That was so cool. And then he went on stage after a bit. You know, after a little while, they had closed off his eye on, and it got kind of crazy. So then he left. He went out through the entrance that goes toward the stage. And so we thought, okay, he's gone. Then he pops up on stage. And it was just amazing. And then here I am with my camera, and I took a picture of Tom Jones, and then I took pictures with Elvis. Because composition, you try to always put your subject in the middle, but I should have put both of them together in a picture instead, you know.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that interview with Bill Medley?
I don't think I have, no.
Well, this kind of was cool to me. Bill Medley talked about, he knew Elvis for many years, you know, he in Memphis, and had been to his house and everything, and he was in Vegas, and how Elvis, you know, he'd be in the small room, Elvis would be in the big room, and a couple of times Elvis came up behind him while he was on stage and just walk up and say hi. Well, then they find out later that he's going to be at the next, they're all waiting to see, is he going to come to the midnight show? And so halfway through the show, Elvis walks on, and a bunch of guys come behind him and go, hi, oh, I'm walking through, you know. So then he talked about became a really good friend of Elvis, and so he'd go up to the dressing room quite often and talk to him. And this just totally, but even the people that knew him were amazed at who Elvis Presley, the entertainer, was, because he said Elvis says, hey, come on, walk up the stage with me. And he said he was standing at the side of the stage, and they were getting him ready and fixing the hair and making sure he was all right. And, everything was just perfect. And he says he got that music going in the background, 2001, and everything going on out there, and the music's building. And he said, Elvis walks out, and he says, I stood there and thought, oh, my gosh, that's Elvis Presley. Elvis was just so down to earth, but look at who he was when he was on stage.
Yeah.
So dynamic.
Exactly. Yeah. There was such a contrast between him when he was on stage and when he was just being a normal guy. He was. Yeah. A lot of people said he was very, very shy off stage. He was very, very shy.
Yeah, and of course I didn't notice him being shy, because I was petrified most of the time, or nervous anyway. One of the neat things is my girlfriend met him backstage in August of '70, and she had taken pictures in July of '70, and she'd taken this one picture of him in the floral shirt, and she gave that to me for my birthday. She took it backstage in 11/14 and had Elvis autograph it. And the thing about it that was so amazing to me is that when she asked him to autograph it to Judy Palmer, he said, she has the fan club in Washington, right? And, you just never really think that Elvis would remember you.
Yeah,
I had given him pictures from the stage and things like that. You don't put that together.
That's right. Because, of all the thousands of people he must have met in his lifetime, and he remembers things like that.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. And I've just been so blessed and so lucky. The other day, somebody put a video on Facebook. This even blew me away. Elvis was, how high the stages were, some of those concerts out, when he toured. And this girl came to the stage, and he actually says, wait a minute. And he actually does a push-up to get down to her. He goes, wait a minute. He puts the mic down. He goes down and gets it and does a push-up to get up. And I go, now that would be a memorable kiss.
Yes, yes, that's right.
And recently, I don't know if you've seen on my page, somebody posted pictures from San Diego, I think it is, 1970 in November. And I tell everybody, in Vegas in 1970, the shows that I saw were so much wilder than That's the Way It Is. And if you see that video of him 2 months later in San Diego, that's the most like I saw him in '70. He was just absolutely wild. It was incredible.
I don't know whether he toned it down a little bit for the cameras or not, maybe. But then you would have thought he would have wanted to play up to the cameras.
Yeah, and then again, he might have just been figuring it out at that point. And then, but then he probably just got crazy, doing whatever he wanted to do after that. And in '71, it was just so funny because he did that 2001 A Space Odyssey thing. And Charlie, at one point, he says, hey, play that music again. And so they play the 2001 music, and he has it back turned from the audience, and he turns around, and he's got this ape mask on. And the whole audience just fell out. And he turns around and looks over, and Charlie's got one on now. Yeah. So the things like that. One of my favorite things I still remember was he was doing Don't Cry Daddy, and he was being silly and tickled. And he got to this one point at the end, and he goes, gets almost to the end, and he goes, oh man, I got to end this song. And he goes, sing it, Charlie. And Charlie couldn't sing it either, and they were going, oh man, I got to end this song. And he just barely he was laughing so hard he couldn't quit giggling.
He had a great laugh, an infectious laugh. There's an Are You Lonesome Tonight recording,
yes,
isn't there?
I've heard
it. He just fits of laughter.
Isn't that just fun?
Yes. Yes, it
It
is.
was so fun. His laughter was so wonderful. Yeah.
So if somebody wants to get your book, they can visit the Facebook page, My Treasured Members of Elvis. Is that correct?
They could write to me. I only have a few left. I have to check with Mike and see what he has. I know John Daly in Memphis, the Elvis pawn shop. A couple people said that they had bought them from him. But at this point, I really don't have the money to reprint the book. So as many. It would be nice if I could turn them in and print 100 copies, but I could only afford to do like 10 at a time.
Yeah.
It's like I said, I'm rare and vintage all at the same time now. but it's pretty cool. In the beginning you think, well, will you be able to sell 2,000 books? And now they're almost gone.
Yeah.
So
exactly. If
somebody really wanted it, they could probably write to me or Mike Freeman, and I can check with Mike and see if he has any left.
Okay.
So, but a girl from France just wrote to me and said she had my book, so I don't know where she purchased hers. Yeah, I would imagine maybe somebody that had it is selling theirs on eBay or something.
Yes.
Mike has they have had them on Amazon where they do audiobooks where you can pay, I don't know, $1.99 or something and have the audiobook of it.
Oh, yes.
I think he's still doing that, Mike, and word of mouth. It was cool. Mike had my book for sale at Boulevard Souvenirs and at Sun Records and Popular Tunes.
Oh, yeah.
So it was kind of cool to have my book at those places for sale, and that was a lot of Mike's doing. Mike, you probably know Mike Freeman. He used to own Elvis's Audubon house.
Yes, that's right.
And super nice guy, very, very nice guy. I think he had it for like 8 years.
Yeah.
And he's a super nice guy.
Yeah.
And he's done a couple books on Elvis himself too.
Well, Judy, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. It really has. I could speak to you all day. I'm sure there's still other stories you could tell me. Maybe we should do a part 2 to this one.
Yeah. There are definitely a lot of funny stories around Elvis fans sharing stories and crazy things that you get into, right?
Yeah, that's right. Well, he had a wicked sense of humor as well, didn't he? He had a really good sense of humor. In fact, I often think, actually, if I'd have ever met Elvis, we would have got on well because we have the same kind of crazy sort of humor.
Yeah, very witty.
Oh, right. Yeah, very witty.
A quick wit.
Yes,
right?
He was, yeah.
And you're good with people as well, Steve.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for coming on the show. It's been, as I said, it's been a great pleasure. And take care of yourself. And I'd love to speak to you again sometime.
Yeah, I'd love that. Thank you, Steve.
Okay, thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
A huge thank you to Judy for joining me on the show to share her memories of Elvis with us. As mentioned, her book, My Treasured Members of Elvis, is available by contacting Judy through her Facebook page. Don't forget you can join me live on the YouTube channel every Wednesday and Sunday for fan chats, news and reviews, and the Elvis Fan of the Month quiz with prizes on offer. I also name my Elvis Song of the Week. Until next time, stay safe, and I hope you can join me again for another episode from Elvis the Ultimate Fan channel.